I will say that whether it's the algorithm or the stage of my life that I'm in, everybody I know is in perimenopause.
Yes.
Everybody's in it,
yes.
you know, and every man I know is very sympathetic to it. So this thing where it used to be, oh my goodness, you know, oh, she's just like a hysterical woman that is having hot flashes. I feel like that has sort of gone to the side.
The media world woke up and said, oh, whoa, there's a lot of women around the world who are over the age of 50 and, ooh, they have money to spend. And wow, they're in positions of... You know, like, okay, I mean, should it have taken this long for that?
No.
Of course not. However, better late than never. And yeah, people are recognizing that, you know, the estimates are by 2030, the menopause market globally will top $30 billion.
Hey, friends, and welcome to The Paula Ferris Show. I'm your host, Paula Ferris. So glad that you are here joining us this month as we kick off a series on women's health and nutrition and perimenopause. We're talking all about it, and I have two wonderful guests. But thank you for joining me last month for our series on teenagers with therapists Sissy Goff and Nero Feliciano. I learned so much, and I'm so grateful that they shared their expertise and their wisdom and insight as to this particular phase, raising teenagers and tweens. Okay, we are jumping in with both feet when it comes to women's health and nutrition and perimenopause and what the heck is happening in our bodies. And I have two incredible guests joining me all month long. Dr. Jen Ashton. Dr. Jen and I are colleagues from ABC. She was the chief medical correspondent at ABC while I was there. She's also an OB-GYN, has her doctorate in nutrition, and she recently left ABC to start a company called Ajenda. That's Agenda with a J, focusing on women's health, nutrition, and weight management, specifically during these perimenopausal and menopausal years. And then also joined by Aarti Sequeira. You may know her from the Food Network. She is a host, just a wonderful human being, a mom of two, like me, also in her 40s. She's in her mid-40s. So all month long, we're talking about perimenopause, menopause, women's health and nutrition. And you guys, we're having real, honest conversations about this. We are sharing some things publicly that we have never shared before. And I want you to know you're not alone on this journey. We're walking right there with you. And I hope that throughout this series, you're really encouraged and you're equipped with information that you didn't have before you listened or watched the series on YouTube. Okay, here's a sample of some of the topics. We're talking about how the majority of change in our bodies happens during perimenopause, not before or after. We are talking about how to prepare for this phase of life, from hormone replacement therapy, weighted vests, supplements, protein, fiber, all the things. We're talking about weight management and GLP-1s and the surprising thing that Dr. Jen has to say about this conversation, and also some public admissions from myself and both Aarti that we've never shared before. And then we're talking about testosterone and creatine, and could both of those be game changers for us? And also a sobering statistic about women who die by suicide, and that it's more prominent to happen in your mid to late 40s, that age of 45 to 49, than at any other moment in our lives, because we're carrying so much. We're going through so many hormonal changes. We are often raising teenagers. We're taking care of our aging parents. We are part of the sandwich generation. So we're going to talk about that and how to have that conversation, whether you're the one struggling or you're trying to encourage or be there for somebody who is struggling. As always, we keep these conversations going in my personal newsletter. If you haven't subscribed, you can do so today. It's at paulaferrisofficial.com. That's paulaferrisofficial.com. It's free. It's supposed to come out every 2 weeks, but you guys, I'm in the middle of a move. We're moving into town. There's tons going on. The kids are back in school. That's why if you're watching, you're like, why is there a Pac-Man machine behind you? I'll explain it in the episode today. Stick around for my takeaways from this conversation. But without further ado, it is episode 1 of our month-long series on women's health, nutrition, and perimenopause with Dr. Jen Ashton and Aarti Sequeira. We are talking about the latest on women's health and how the majority of change happens during perimenopause. Enjoy. Ladies, wow. It has been, it has taken a minor miracle to get to this point, but I'm so glad that we're finally having this conversation. And if you only knew, sorry for everybody listening, showed up without a bra because we are moving right now. We're in the midst of moving closer into town, and the box that had my bras and underwears and socks was lost until this morning. So I just wanted to give you a heads up.
There is a God, Paula. There is a God.
Thank God. But wait, can I just keep it real? Wait, if I just tilt my camera, I have a Pac-Man machine now in my former office, which
sweet.
Yeah, so we're in a season of transition. So speaking of transition and this time of life, Dr. Jen and Aarti Sequeira, so glad to have you in. Dr. Jen, what the heck is happening to us at this point in our lives? I'm so excited to dive into it, from the lack of funding. You're going to tell us about all the new research. Aarti, you and I are going to share a real lived experience. But Dr. Jen, I read something that said the most change happens not after menopause, but during perimenopause. That's when the majority of the change happens. And they looked at brain scans. So can you tell us specifically, and I think, Aarti, you and I are in perimenopause.
I'm in it. Oh, yeah. I'm in the club. I've got the card.
Oh, they call it the coming of rage. Not coming of age, but coming of rage. We can talk about that. But so explain that to us, Dr. Jen, with the new brain imaging. What's happening? Why is more change happening at this point during perimenopause than any other time?
I would say that the framework that I use as a board-certified OBGYN to look at a woman's entire lifespan really gets divided up to 3 major/massive stages.
Mm-hmm.
And they all start with P: puberty, pregnancy, and then perimenopause.
Okay.
Right? And I think that the reason for us that it feels like perimenopause is the most is really because of where we are in life, that you could say kind of the stakes are higher.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have more years, more things, more responsibilities, you know, a bigger network, a bigger social circle, a bigger family circle, a bigger professional circle. Everything is bigger, right? If a 11-year-old who's going through puberty, which is as massive on par for that 11-year-old, you know, proportionately, they don't have people they're responsible for, a job, you know, all those years where they can say, God, how does this feel in comparison to? So I think it's important, you know, it's not a competition, which is more significant or more impactful. All 3 of those P stages are significant and impactful and major. It's just that, you know, when you're in your 40s and you start going through perimenopause,
Mm-hmm.
you have a bigger footprint than you did when you were pregnant for the first time, and certainly when you started going through puberty. And so I think everything is amplified. But, you know, to get into a little bit of the mini med school, as I like to say, all of the changes that come with perimenopause are all directly tied to a drop in estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, because that 50% of our circulating testosterone as women comes from ovaries. So those 3 hormones start to drop, and they don't drop in a nice gradual way. They drop erratically and often, you know, in a pulsatile-like fashion. So, you know, one day they could drop a lot, and then for a while they might be stable, and then they could drop again. You know, we notice that.
Yep.
Estrogen and progesterone receptors in our entire body, head to toe, brain to feet.
So this study that I saw, isn't it crazy? It does. There's a ride growing up I used to go to. It was called Cedar Point. It was an amusement park, and they had something called the Demon Drop, and you literally just drop, I don't know, like 13 stories. That's kind of what it feels like. Aarti, for you, I know I've been, now that I know what I know, because I've researched it, but we didn't know what it was called, but I've been in perimenopause for almost 15 years. Like since I'm my mid-30s, I'm going to be 50 this year. How long has it been since you really felt like yourself? I know, Dr. Jen, it's crazy.
I remember when you were pregnant with your 3rd baby.
I know. And yes, it's crazy, but I have not felt like myself since my mid-30s. How long has it been for you? Aarti?
Probably since I'm 47 now. We moved at the beginning of COVID, and that was probably when everything started coming apart. So that was, 5 years ago? So 42. Actually, it's so interesting that you say, that's how you figure out that something's up, is I, full disclosure, was on a GLP-1. I've not said that publicly because, a lot of people
There's no
jump to
shame in
conclusions.
that game.
I'm not ashamed of it, but the thing is that in order to explain yourself, it takes a good half hour to 45 minutes.
Yes.
And then I'm also giving away my medical history in order to justify it. And I'm just like, well, okay, we're not talking about this.
I'm in the process of considering going on one. So let's just put all those chips on the table
we'll
right
talk
now.
about it.
Yes, we'll all talk about it later. Yeah.
Part of my care in taking that back in the day is that I would get my labs drawn every 3 to 4 months. And I remember, so I'd been going faithfully. Everything was, being looked at. And I came in one day and Tammy, the nurse, who is like the sweetest lady, she took my blood pressure and she goes, Aarti. And I was like, what did I do wrong? She's like, your blood pressure is through the roof and it never has been. She said, are you all right? Are you feeling dizzy? Are you, all these things? And I was like, I'm fine. I didn't even drink my coffee this morning. I really wanted to be okay. And, she made me sit down for a half hour and take it again. And it still was high. And then, when we were looking over my labs, my testosterone, which actually is normally a little bit high because I have PCOS, had sunk. And that was those two things happening were the first time I went, oh, wait a minute. And my doctor was like, yeah, these things can sometimes be a signal that you're in perimenopause. Yeah.
And Dr. Jen, again, we know now that menopause is one day in our lifetime. It's after we have not had a menstrual cycle for one full year. So anything leading up to that is the perimenopausal state. It can begin in our mid-30s. Can you talk to us about some of the new research and development that's out there? Because we know that this is an equity issue. I think I read that U.S. diseases affecting men receive at least 2 times more funding as women. And I know that there have been some private funds like the Gates Foundation pouring $2.5 billion through 2030 for women's health and menopause, this phase of our life. We have a new FDA director. Like, do you sense that the tides are shifting when it comes to research, development, funding, all of that?
I do, and listen, I don't spend a lot of time in my personal or professional life looking back or pointing a finger of blame at a situation or people who may be responsible for a situation, just because I really feel like it's not productive and it spins bad karma.
Right.
But I will say that the only reason, in my opinion, that, more kind of gender equitable research and attention is going on right now has to do with dollar signs. It's not due to the kindness of people's hearts. It's finally that collectively, the scientific world, the commercial world, the political world, all of the above, the media world woke up and said, oh, whoa, there's a lot of women around the world who are over the age of 50 and, ooh, they have money to spend. And wow, they're in positions of okay, I mean, should it have taken this long for that to, of course not. However, better late than never. And yeah, people are recognizing that, the estimates are by 2030, the menopause market globally will top $30 billion.
Wow.
I think a low number, by the way, that there are close to 1 billion women in menopause around the world right now. In the U.S., 1.4 billion women enter menopause every year. And guess what? This is a lot of people. And as a doctor and a scientist and someone who's interested in health and public health, as well as gender equity in medicine and science, that I see a lot of lives at stake there. But sadly, other spheres just see a lot of dollar signs. So now, yes, they're doing research specifically on trial women, at the age of 50 or in their 40s, specifically looking at perimenopausal symptoms and pathophysiology. You know, okay, it's 2025. It shouldn't taken this long, but for some reason, and let's face it, we'll take it, there's a confluence of everything kind of lining up so that this all is happening. And
Yeah.
for the most part, that's a good thing. I do think there's a societal negative attached to this menopause movement as well. It's not all rosy.
Ooh, when I hear that,
I know.
she's sassy, that Dr. Jen.
I know she is. If they're doing it for moral reasons, if they're doing it for monetary reasons, they're doing it. So that's good. We don't need to deconstruct the why. It's just the fact that more research, more money is being poured into this because for so long, and Aarti, I don't know if you felt like this when you've seen doctors, and Dr. Jen, you are a doctor, but I read this and it said men's health, it's treated as essential. Women's health, too often it's treated as negotiable, questionable, and discouraged. But we deserve to feel good. From hormone therapy to preventive care, women are still talked out of treatments that men get without question. It's time to challenge that double standard and demand the same standard of care. When it comes to your care, Aarti, do you feel like you've had to fight for it? I know certainly I have. I've had to fight. I've had to advocate for it. And I'm a pretty, well-informed human being. I can be a lot, and I am my own advocate, and I love to advocate for others, but I can't imagine what other women are going through who are probably talked out of it and made to feel like their health is negotiable. What's your experience been, Aarti?
I've actually had a wonderful experience, but that is also because I pay for my doctor out of pocket. I don't have.
There you go.
This is the problem, right?
This is the problem.
The doctor I have insurance. I was, self-employed, married to an actor. I still am, by the way.
Yes.
But so we didn't have insurance for a long time. So me going to the doctor was also like, gosh, do you eat, do you wear pearls and eat caviar too? Like, that's amazing. So, going to the doctor felt like a huge luxury until only recently. So because I'm paying out of pocket and I'm going to a functional doctor where every one of my doctor's visits is 30 to 45 minutes, I feel very heard and very seen and very advocated for, in fact. And I've seen the opposite experience in my own relationship where I had to say to my husband, hey, man, why don't you go to the doctor? And maybe there's some hormonal changes going on in you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have seen that in some cases, men are a little more reluctant to talk about some of the things that are changing in their body. But I've had a really great experience with it. I will say that whether it's the algorithm or the stage of my life that I'm in, everybody I know is in perimenopause.
Yes.
Everybody's in it,
yes.
and every man I know is very sympathetic to it. So this thing where it used to be, oh my goodness, she's just like a hysterical woman that is having hot flashes. I feel like that has sort of gone to the side. And I'm really interested to hear, Dr. Jen, what you're saying, might be the negative of it. But I've had a pretty good experience. Now, that said, I have to now go find a PCP. I can't keep going to my sweet, very expensive doctor. And I'm curious what that will be like, because I did go to a PCP and I remember, even for something like psoriasis, I was like, oh, well, I have psoriasis and I'm not sure, what can we do about it? And immediately it was like, take a steroid and do this injection and it'll go away. And I was like, but what about the long term? That sort of mentality of like, let's just attack it and move on. I feel like that doesn't work for menopause because it's such a long-term issue. And as you said, Dr. Jen, it changes constantly. Like where I started with waking up at 3 a.m. and having brain fog, now I'm like, okay, but I'm now emotional. So did something change? Because
it's the demon drop. It's the demon drop ride.
It is. Yes. Yeah. So I've had a good experience, thank God.
Well, I think to your point, it really highlights a fundamental difference in our healthcare system in Western medicine, which is that our healthcare system has a lot of great things, but it's great at treating disease. It's not great at preventing disease or promoting wellness. That's just a really sad, glaring, unfortunate reality. Non-Western medicine is more designed from the ground up to promoting health and wellness. And so our whole healthcare system is, really there's a tiny minority of it that's designed for preventative health or routine checks. And those aren't even necessarily paying off. Those aren't even a good bang for the buck because of how they're designed, right? And so many people, and I was the same way when I had my practice, I did not accept insurance because I did not want to spend 4.5 minutes with a patient. I wanted to spend a minimum of 30 minutes with an existing patient and an hour with a new patient. And I found in almost 20 years of practice like that I did deliver better health outcomes. My patients were not calling me with random emergencies because we had spent the time talking about things in the office before they became an emergency.
Right.
And, I think you also highlighted something that's very important when you talk about women at this stage in life, which is perimenopause is not one moment in time. Menopause arbitrarily is defined as one moment in time, as you said, Paula, but perimenopause could be a decade.
More than
right?
that.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
dying.
Yeah. And then
15 years.
post-menopause, by the way, people are like, when does this end? I'm like, when you die. Um, so that could be the second half of a woman's life, potentially, right? A woman at 90 and goes through menopause at 45. So that's not a little stage.
Yeah.
And the needs and things that will come up are going to ebb and flow and they're going to change. And some of them may be minor and some of them may be major, but it's kind of like financial planning. You have to have a long-term vision as well as a short-term plan. And unfortunately, we're not really set up for that. And, I kind of teased the negative aspect, something that I have been feeling and watching and paying attention to with this menopause movement for the last 5 years or so, since we really came through COVID. So maybe a little less than 5 years. And I think it's a major problem. And no one is talking about this. Dun, 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 Paula.
This is the clip. Clip it. I'm clipping it right now. I'm marking it in Riverside.
No one is talking about this. When you hear all of the health and medical influencers in the menopause movement, preaching their kind of platform of content, the vast majority of which, I want to be crystal clear, is helpful and reputable and credentialed. Okay, the vast majority. If you listen very closely, even with those credentialed, appropriate, expert influencers, you will hear a message that I feel is incredibly disrespectful to women, if not damaging. And that is the following. Women are weak. Women are victims. Women need to be served everything on a silver platter in order to be prepared. And I will give you almost a verbatim example. Quote, "No one told us that we would be going through these symptoms. No one prepared us." Stop. We're all mothers here. Did anyone prepare you for how to be pregnant until you were actually pregnant? I think not. What did you do? You peed on a stick. You saw a plus sign or 2 red lines. You said, "Oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. I'd better start educating myself." You didn't stand in a feeble position and say, "Come on, people, instruct me, educate me, tell me what this is going to be like." No. And I'll take it one step further.
Preach.
Anyone really prepare us for having our first period? Come on. We got up to speed real fast on that at the age of 11, 12, 13, whatever it was, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, but even the most well-meaning menopause experts in the menopause sphere who have massive followings, without realizing it, and I am positive this is, of course, not intentional on their part, they are sending a message that actually is demeaning, insulting, and victimizes women.
Right.
And I am 1000% against that.
Right.
This is no one's responsibility to tell women, oh, when you're 37 or 40 or 42 or 47, this is going to start happening. Okay? No more than they should tell a man what to expect when erectile dysfunction happens. No one's telling men that. And you don't hear men saying, no one told us that as we got older, we were going to a significant percentage of us have erectile dysfunction.
I see a lot of commercials about it, though. I'll tell you, too many.
Sure. But guess what? That's only to improve the bottom line, right? That's not starting from a position of saying women need to be served things handed in a bow on a silver platter and instructed as to their own bodies. I'm sorry, but there is individual responsibility here, and we've demonstrated it in pregnancy and in puberty. Perimenopause should be no different. In fact, it should be less because we're older, smarter, and have resources. So I think that, with every big positive movement, it's a little more nuanced than, like I said, and Paula, you probably remember me saying this. I love this line. Be careful when you point a finger of blame because there's 3 pointing right back at you. So I think we need to be careful in this menopause movement before we blame the world, because where is our responsibility?
Aarti, I told you she was going to be fun and spicy, just like you, right? I mean, that's it.
I love it.
That's what I love about Dr. Jen. And I've seen too, this could be a time when we are just stepping into our midlife, Wonder Woman, because I really don't care what people think about me anymore. I have so much confidence. If I could take the confidence of my 40s and now almost 50s into my 20s and 30s, I would be golden. So I think that's a great place to end it. And we're going to pick up next week, speaking of the 3 Ps, puberty, pregnancy, and perimenopause. I am such a good student, Dr. Jen. I remember what you said.
You're brilliant.
But the 4th P is...
in this conversation. You know all this.
The 4th P is preparation. Okay, so how should we prepare for this phase of life? That's where we're going to pick things up next week. Ladies, you're awesome.
To you.
Okay. My takeaways from the conversation are coming up in just a second, but I hope that conversation helped you. Dr. Jen and Aarti will be joining me all month long as we continue to talk about women's health and nutrition and perimenopause. This is going to be such an insightful series. I know in having these conversations with both of them, so many aha moments, and we get very real. And again, we share things publicly that we've never shared before. Before I share my takeaways, if you're looking for a menopause trained doctor, and that is critical because OB-GYNs are not really taught about perimenopause and menopause during med school. And we're not holding anything against them. They just don't know what they don't know. It represents a very small percentage of their training. So if you're looking for a menopause trained doctor, make sure you check out the Menopause Society. I'll put a link in my show notes, as well as a link to Alloy Menopause. That's really where I started my HRT, my hormone replacement therapy journey. I have a code that you can use for a percentage off. I will also put those in the show notes. Okay, it's time for my takeaways. I think the biggest thing is, besides the lack of funding that has been, I'm very encouraged that there's a lot more money being poured into this space. Look, it doesn't really matter at this point why they're doing it. They're doing it, and it is necessary. I think for me, knowing that this is not just a hormonal shift, it affects our brain, but our brain can heal and our brain is going to do better. I referenced a study, new brain imaging, showing that most change happens during perimenopause. I read this from Good Neuroscience. And again, it's based on a study from a couple of years ago. And I want to read a little bit more from Good Neuroscience. And it says, during perimenopause, the brain becomes less efficient at using glucose for fuel. This affects regions tied to memory, focus, and emotional regulation. To adapt, the brain starts using ketones, an energy source made from fat. After menopause, however, these areas often begin to recover. So that's the good news. But changes in brain fuel during perimenopause were linked to real symptoms: forgetfulness, trouble concentrating, mood swings, and mental exhaustion were common in the transition phase. Mood changes weren't just hormonal, they were visible in the brain. Despite these changes, the brain showed resilience. Postmenopausal women had stable or recovering brain volume, improved energy use, and better network connectivity. This is the line that gets me. Menopause is more than a hormonal shift. It's a neurological event that temporarily affects how your brain works, feels, and recovers. So, it's affecting more than our hormones, it's affecting our brain, but it's going to get better during postmenopause. And I'm going to share in a couple of episodes something that I started taking and adding to my HRT routine that has kind of been a game changer when it comes to the brain fog and the forgetfulness. But next week, we are diving into our second episode, how we should be preparing for this phase of life. And we're keeping it real, and we're going to keep talking about it. We'll see you next week for episode 2 of our series. Thanks for joining. I know you guys thought you were done with me, but not quite yet. I have one more thing to tell you about. If you're watching on YouTube or you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to subscribe to the show. I don't want you to miss a single beat or a single conversation. And remember, my DMs are always open. Tell me what you want to talk about.